The alien medical bay was silent except for the low hum of machines. Blue lights ran across the ceiling, glowing like stars trapped in glass. Nurse Vera walked slowly between the rows of beds, her long silver fingers carrying a glowing tablet. She had treated many species before, but tonight a new patient had arrived, and nothing about him felt normal. The guards had carried the strange body inside an hour ago. They said it was found near the edge of the battlefield, where smoke still rose into the alien night. The body was taller than most creatures she had ever seen, its skin pale, its chest rising and falling with a rhythm that confused her. The guards whispered a single word, one she had only heard in old war stories. Human. Vera leaned close, watching the slow rise of his chest. The heartbeat on her screen was fast, far too fast for a creature this size. Yet the rhythm was strong, powerful, unbroken. How can something this fragile keep living? She whispered to herself. She touched her scanner gently against his arm. Strange numbers filled the screen, heat levels higher than her own species could survive. His blood carried more oxygen than she thought possible. Even in unconsciousness, his muscles twitched like coiled steel. It was as if the body was built for war itself. Other nurses gathered behind her, their voices low and afraid. Is it true? One asked. Do they really heal faster than any of us? Careful, another said. They say humans are dangerous even when asleep. But Vera ignored them, her eyes locked on the human's chest, watching it rise, fall, rise again, steady as a drum. She remembered the old lessons from the academy. Humans were spoken of as myths, creatures who fought without fear, who could adapt to any world. Some said they were extinct, others said they were too wild to control. Now, one of them lay before her, breathing on her table. Her tablet beeped sharply, pulling her from her thoughts. His heart rate had spiked suddenly, jumping higher and higher. Impossible, she whispered, pressing the scanner again. But the numbers did not fall, they climbed, as if his body was waking itself from within. Vera stepped back, her own heart's racing. The human's hand twitched, fingers curling slightly. She froze, the room growing cold despite the warmth of the machines. The other nurses gasped and stepped away, leaving her standing closest to the bed. His skin was strange, warmer than it should be. Scars crossed his arms, marks of battles long past. Every scar told a story of survival, and yet he lived. What kind of creature refuses to die? Vera thought, staring at the pattern of pain written across his body. The medical bay lights flickered once, dimmed, then steadied again. For a moment, she thought she saw his lips move. No sound came out, but it was enough to freeze her where she stood. Her tablet beeped again, warning, neural activity rising. Her throat tightened. He was not just alive, he was waking. Vera's silver fingers trembled as she reached for a sedative, but something inside stopped her. Curiosity was stronger than fear. She wanted to see what happened next. The human's eyelids shifted just barely. Her breath caught in her throat. Then, with slow effort, his finger lifted off the bed, curling toward his palm. The motion was small, but to the watching nurses, it felt like an earthquake. He moved. One nurse whispered, backing away in terror. He should not even be conscious. Another hissed. No one survives injuries like this. But Vera stood firm, her eyes wide, her heart pounding. She leaned closer, unable to resist. The human's lips parted, and a sound came out, soft, broken, but real. It was not in their language, not fully, yet the translator implanted in her ear caught fragments. Where am I? The voice rasped, raw, and filled with life. Every nurse froze. The room felt heavier, as if time itself had slowed. The legends, the whispers, the fear, all of it was standing before them now, breathing, speaking, awake. Vera's hands shook, but she forced herself to stay. Her training told her to sedate him. Her instincts told her to run. But something deeper inside her, something ancient and curious, whispered to stay. She leaned closer, her voice soft as a secret. You are safe here. Human. The man's eyes flickered open, just for a second. They were not like hers, not like any alien eyes. They burned with a fire that made her chest tighten. And before closing again, his lips moved one more time. The translator gave her the word, sharp and clear. Va. The lights above flickered again, and the hum of machines grew louder. Vera stepped back, her entire body trembling. She realized in that moment that the stories were true. Humans were not myths. They were not gone. They were real, and one of them had just awakened in her care, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The medical bay was quiet again, but Vera's mind was louder than ever. The human's short awakening replayed inside her head, his broken words echoing like thunder in her thoughts. He had spoken, his eyes had opened, and for a brief moment, she had felt something she could not name. It was not fear alone, it was not only fascination, it was something larger, something dangerous. Now he slept once more, but his body was far from calm. Her scanners showed strange activity, numbers leaping and dipping in patterns that made no sense. Other patients breathed slow, steady, predictable, but this human's body acted like a storm. Every beat of his heart carried power. Every breath seemed too strong. And yet he survived. Vera circled his bed, silver fingers brushing across her tablet, taking notes she herself barely understood. His bones, according to the scan, were denser than her people's strongest warriors. His muscles reacted even in unconsciousness, tightening as if ready to fight again. The scars along his chest spoke of wounds that should have killed him long ago. But instead of weakness, they had hardened into layers of survival. One nurse stepped forward cautiously, her eyes wide. "Why do you keep watching him?" she asked, her voice hushed. Vera did not look away from the human. "Because he should be dead," she whispered back. "Then why is he not?" the nurse pressed. Vera only shook her head, because she had no answer. She remembered her training again, the classes about dangerous species. They had been told that humans were unpredictable, their biology unstable, their minds too violent. But what she saw now was not chaos. It was something deeper. It was adaptation, as if the body itself had learned to refuse defeat. Her scanner beeped again, sharp and shrill. The human's temperature was climbing. Vera's eyes widened, because any normal patient would be near death. Yet when she leaned closer, she realized his breathing was still strong, steady, almost calm. "Heat makes him stronger," she muttered, shocked by her own words. The other nurses exchanged nervous glances. One of them whispered, "This is madness. Such a creature should not exist." Another hissed, "We should restrain him before he wakes again." But Vera only stared at the sleeping figure, her mind racing faster than her heart's. She opened a deeper scan, something forbidden without approval. The machine word, sending waves of light across the human's body. The results made her take a sharp breath. His cells were shifting, adapting, repairing damage faster than the machine could record. It was like watching a fire feed on air, growing stronger instead of weaker. Her fingers trembled as she recorded the data. This discovery could change everything. Medicine, war, even the balance of power in the galaxy. But it could also bring danger unlike anything before. Because if one human could survive like this, what would an army of them be capable of? The human stirred again, his head moving slightly on the pillow. Her eyes locked onto his face, waiting. For a moment, she thought he might wake, but instead, he whispered in his sleep. It was soft, broken, but her translator caught the word, "Mother." Vera froze, her chest tightening. This word did not sound like war. It did not sound like violence. It sounded human, fragile, full of longing. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying. The creature on her table was not only a weapon. He was also alive, with memories, with emotions, with a past. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sharp voice of the chief doctor, who entered the room suddenly. "Step away from the specimen," he commanded, his tone firm. Vera turned, clutching her tablet close. "He is not a specimen. He is a patient. she said firmly. The doctor narrowed his eyes. Do not be fooled by myths, nurse. This species is a danger to every world. But look at him, Vera argued, her voice rising. He heals, he survives, he speaks. Does that not make him more than a monster? The room fell silent, every nurse holding their breath. The human shifted again, his fingers curling, his jaw tightening. The chief doctor hissed, restrain him now before he wakes. But Vera stood in front of the bed, her body blocking the way. Her own heart raced, but she held her ground. No, she whispered. I need to know what he is. The machines beeped wildly, alarms flashing red. His pulse was racing, his cells working faster than ever. And then, without warning, his eyes opened again, glowing with life. Every alien in the room stepped back in fear. But Vera stood frozen, staring into eyes that were not like any she had ever seen. The human's lips moved, broken words falling out. We're home, he whispered, his voice raw. The translator struggled, but the meaning was clear. This creature was not only alive, he was searching for something. And in that instant, Vera felt her fears shift into something new. Curiosity burned brighter than her training, stronger than her fear. She needed to know everything about this human. The chief doctor barked orders, guards rushed inside. But Vera's mind was already made. She leaned closer to the human, her voice trembling but firm. Stay alive, whatever you are, she whispered. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The medical bay was darker than before. Only the glow of monitors lit the room. Most of the staff had left, frightened by the human's strange reactions. Only Nurse Vera remained, her silver fingers resting nervously on the edge of the bed. The hum of machines filled the silence, steady and low, like a warning heartbeat. The human lay still, his chest rising and falling in deep rhythm. But Vera knew better than to trust that calm. Her scans showed activity inside his mind, signals stronger than any patient she had ever seen. It was like his body was not resting, but preparing. She leaned closer, studying the scars that marked his chest and arms. Each scar was different. A burn, a blade, a bullet, a wound that should have ended his life. Yet here he was, breathing, alive, defying the very science she trusted. Her hands trembled slightly, and still she whispered, "What are you?" Then it happened. The human's eyes snapped open, not slow, not weak, but sudden, sharp, alive. The bright light of the monitors reflected in them, and for the first time, Vera saw their full color. They were not alien, they were not cold. They were burning, alive with fire. The human gasped, his body jerking upward, tearing wires free. The machines screamed alarms, lights flashing across the bay. Vera stumbled back, but she did not run. Her instincts screamed to call the guards, but her curiosity held her frozen in place. The human's breathing was heavy, each breath like thunder in the quiet room. He looked around, confusion in his eyes, muscles tense like a predator waking in a cage. Vera forced herself to speak, her voice soft but steady. "You're safe. You're not in danger." The translator in her ear shifted the words into human tongue. The man blinked, staring at her, his jaw tight. For a moment, no sound came, only the heavy rise and fall of his chest. Then, his lips parted, and broken words slipped out. Not safe here." Vera froze, her heart's hammering. "What do you mean?" she asked, but the human's eyes darted to the walls, to the ceiling, as if he could sense something she could not. His body swayed, weak but determined, and he tried to push himself off the bed. The wires pulled against him, monitors shrieking in protest. "Stop," Vera whispered, holding out her hand, but he did not stop. His strength was shocking. Even injured and weak, his muscles fought the restraints like they were nothing. One strap snapped, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet bay. Vera's breath caught. The human's eyes locked onto hers, burning with both fury and pain. Her instincts screamed again, but she did not step back this time. Instead, she whispered, "Please, I want to help you." Something in her tone reached him. For the first time, the fire in his gaze dimmed slightly. His breathing slowed, his fists loosened, though the power in his body was still there, waiting. He stared at her with a strange expression, suspicion, but also a flicker of trust. The doors hissed open, breaking the moment. Two guards stormed in, weapons raised. The human tensed immediately, his jaw clenching, his body ready to fight again. "Stand back," the guard shouted, aiming their blasters at him. Vera spun around, panic in her voice. "No, wait, don't shoot." But the guards did not listen, fear already controlling them. The human growled low, like an animal warning before attack. Vera threw herself between them, arms outstretched. "Stop! He is not attacking," she cried, her voice breaking. The guards hesitated, but only for a moment. The human's gaze softened slightly as he looked at her. His breathing slowed, his muscles easing, as if he had made a choice. He slumped back against the bed, closing his eyes, forcing himself still. The machines beeped wildly, but slowly began to settle. Vera lowered her hands, her entire body trembling with relief. The guards kept their weapons raised, unsure, but she turned to them sharply. "Leave us now." They hesitated, muttering about danger, but her tone left no room for argument. Reluctantly, they left, the doors hissing shut behind them. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of breathing. Hers quick, his heavy. Vera sat slowly beside the bed, her silver fingers shaking as she touched her tablet. The readings made no sense. The human's vitals were climbing again, but not in danger, in strength. His body was healing itself faster, almost feeding on the chaos around him. She leaned close, whispering softly, almost afraid of her own words. "You are not supposed to exist," she said, her voice trembling. "And yet, you do." The human's eyes flickered open once more, just a sliver, and he whispered back, broken but clear, "I exist to fight." Vera felt her throat tighten, her heart's racing. Every myth, every warning, every legend, all of it was true. Humans were real, humans were dangerous, and humans were something far beyond her understanding. And she realized then, sitting alone in the dim glow of the medical bay. Her life had just changed forever. The medical bay no longer felt safe. It felt like a cage filled with sparks, one wrong move away from fire. Vera stood between the human and the rest of her people, her hearts beating too fast. The guards had left, but the silence they left behind was heavier than their weapons. The human lay back on the bed, his chest rising in steady rhythm. But Vera could see it in his eyes. He was not truly resting. Every twitch of his fingers, every flex of his jaw, spoke of a body ready to fight again. He was holding himself still only because he had chosen to. That thought both comforted and terrified her. The doors opened with a sharp hiss, breaking the fragile calm. The chief doctor strode in, his long cloak dragging against the floor. Behind him came two more medical officers, carrying restraints and sharp tools. "Step aside, Nurse Vera," the doctor commanded, his voice cold. "This creature must be contained before it becomes a threat." Vera shook her head, her silver fingers tightening around her tablet. "He is not attacking," she said firmly. "He is only trying to survive." The doctor's eyes narrowed. "Survive? That is what makes him dangerous. A species that refuses to die will destroy everything in its path." The human's eyes opened slowly at those words. He watched the exchange in silence, his gaze moving from the doctor to Vera. His breathing deepened, strong, steady like a drumbeat, growing louder. The machines around his bed began to spike, flashing red warnings. The other officers stepped back in fear, whispering. Vera could feel it too. The energy in the room was changing. It was not just fear, it was something larger, something alive. The human was reacting not to pain, not to weakness, but to their voices, to their judgment, to their threat. He understood more than they thought. The doctor lifted his hand, gesturing to the restraints. "Bind him now," he ordered. Vera stepped forward quickly, blocking their path. "No, you do not understand," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "If you treat him like an animal, he will become one." The doctor's eyes flashed with anger. "And if you treat him like a person, he will still kill us all," he snapped. Vera turned to the human, her voice softening. "Is that true? Will you kill us?" she asked, her words almost a whisper. The room fell silent, every alien waiting. The human's eyes locked on hers, and for a moment, the fire in them dimmed. His lips moved slowly, broken words falling out. "I don't want to fight." Vera's breath caught, hope sparking inside her chest. But before she could speak, the doctor slammed his hand against the console. "You see, even its words are broken. It cannot be trusted," he barked. The machines screeched louder, the human's vitals surging. His muscles tightened against the straps, the bed groaning under the pressure. The medical officers stumbled back, panic spreading. Vera raised her voice, desperate. "Stop! You are making him angry," she cried. But the doctor only snarled. "He is already a danger. We must end this now." The human growled low in his throat, a sound that shook the air. Vera turned to him, her hands raised in a calming gesture. "Listen to me," she whispered, her voice steady despite her fear. "You are safe. You do not need to fight." For a long moment, he stared at her, his chest rising and falling like a storm. Then, slowly, the tension in his arms eased, the machines calming. The straps creaked but held, his breathing slowing once more. The other officers watched in awe, whispering among themselves. "How is she doing that?" one asked. "Why is he listening to her?" The doctor's face darkened, anger and fear twisting together. He pointed at Vera sharply. "You are compromised, nurse. You are thinking with your heart, not with reason. If you continue this, you will doom us all." Vera's jaw tightened. "No," she said quietly but firmly. "If we fear what we do not understand, then we are already doomed." The human's eyes flickered again, following every word. For a brief moment, Vera thought she saw something in them. Respect, or perhaps recognition. The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. And then the alarm shattered it. The medical bay lights turned crimson, sirens blaring through the walls. A voice echoed over the intercom, urgent and sharp. "Warning, enemy ships approaching. All personnel prepare for impact." Every alien in the room froze, their attention snapping to the ceiling. The human, however, did not freeze. His eyes sharpened, his body tense, as if the word enemy had awakened something deep inside. He pulled at the straps again, harder this time. The bed shook, the monitors rattling. Vera stared at him, her throat dry. She realized the truth in that moment. If the enemy was real, this human was not their prisoner. He might be their only chance to survive. The clash in the room grew sharper, louder. The doctor shouted for weapons. The officers argued in panic. And Vera stood between them all, her voice breaking through the chaos. "We need him," she said, her words shaking but clear. "If the legends are true, then only a human can survive what is coming." The human's burning eyes met hers once more, and in the glow of red warning lights, she saw the spark of something unstoppable. The war outside was coming closer, and the true battle was about to begin. The medical bay was still glowing red from the alarms. The walls trembled faintly with each vibration from the ships outside. But inside the chamber, Vera's focus remained on the figure strapped to the bed. The human lay there, calm yet restless, his eyes half closed but alive with fire. The chief doctor and the guards had left to prepare for the incoming attack. Only Vera remained, her silver fingers gripping her tablet tightly. Her instinct screamed at her to leave, to follow orders. But her curiosity was stronger, pulling her back to the human again and again. She opened a deep scan, something forbidden in normal protocol. The machine hummed as blue light swept across his body. Numbers filled her tablet, lines of data scrolling too fast to read. Her eyes widened with each result, her breath catching in her throat. His cells were alive in ways she had never seen before. They were repairing, reshaping, rebuilding, even as she watched. Every injury was closing faster than the system could record. It was as if his body had decided that weakness was unacceptable. She whispered softly, almost afraid of her own words. "You are not healing. You are evolving." The human's eyelids shifted slightly, as if he had heard her. Vera froze, her heart's racing. She studied his blood next. What she found made her gasp. His blood carried more oxygen than any known species. It moved like liquid fire, burning brighter under stress. Every beat of his heart only made it stronger. She remembered the whispers from her academy. Legends spoken by teachers who never admitted they believed them. Stories of humans who could breathe poison air, drink bitter water, survive where no other life could. Some called them monsters, some called them survivors. But all the stories ended the same. Humans could not be stopped. Vera's hands trembled as she scrolled further down the data. Radiation levels that would kill her kind in seconds barely touched him. His body adapted, reshaping itself as if it welcomed the danger. The more he suffered, the stronger he became. Her throat tightened. "What kind of world made you?" she whispered. The human's eyes flickered open again, his gaze sharp despite his half-conscious state. He looked at her, his lips parting slowly. "World hard," he whispered, voice raw. Then his eyes closed again, his body sinking back into stillness. Vera staggered back, her silver fingers shaking. He had understood her, he had answered. Not just a monster, not just a patient, but a being with memory, with history, with pain. She looked down at the tablet again. The scan showed something else now, something stranger. When exposed to pain, his nervous system lit up, not with weakness, but with growth. His brain was rewiring itself, faster, sharper, learning from suffering. He was not only healing, he was adapting. Her voice was barely a whisper now. "You are a weapon that the galaxy never meant to create." The human stirred, his breathing heavy but steady. A faint smile tugged at the edge of his lips, as if he already knew. The alarms outside blared louder. The enemy fleet was drawing closer. Vera could hear shouting in the corridors, the sound of boots rushing across metal floors. Her people were preparing for war, but none of their weapons felt strong enough. Not when compared to the living storm lying before her. Her mind raced with questions. Was he the only one left? Were there more humans scattered across the stars? If even one could survive like this, what would an army of them become? The thought made her chest tighten with both fear and awe. She knew the doctor would never understand. To him, the human was only a threat to be removed. But to Vera, he was more. He was a mystery, a secret waiting to be unlocked. The bay trembled again, lights flickering. The human opened his eyes once more, staring at the ceiling this time. He whispered, soft but clear enough for the translator to catch. "Enemy or—" Vera froze, staring at him in shock. "How do you know?" she asked, her voice breaking. His gaze shifted toward her, slow and heavy. "I feel war," he said, his voice carrying a weight older than the stars. Vera's silver fingers tightened around her tablet. Her people had scanners, sensors, fleets. But this human felt the coming battle in his very blood. It was not just science anymore, it was instinct, and she realized that made him even more dangerous than she had thought. The doors hissed, opened suddenly, the chief doctor storming back inside. His cloak was torn, his face pale with fear. "The enemy is here," he barked. "Prepare the patient for termination before they breach." Vera's heart dropped, her throat tightening. She looked back at the human, who was already pulling lightly at the straps. Not desperate, not panicked, only steady. As if he already knew what was coming. As if he had lived this moment before. Vera stood frozen between two truths. Her people wanted him destroyed, but every part of her told her he was the only chance they had. The human's eyes locked on hers again, burning with quiet fire. And in that instant, she knew the real mystery was not his body, but his will. He did not simply live. He refused to die. The medical bay shook with the force of distant explosions. The enemy had arrived, their weapons pounding against the station's shields. Red lights flashed across the ceiling, alarms screaming, but Vera barely heard them. Her entire focus was locked on the human lying before her. He was awake again, not fully, not completely, but enough. His eyes burned faintly in the dim light, his chest rising in calm rhythm. The straps creaked as his muscles shifted against them. Every small motion carried power, restrained, waiting. The chief doctor barked orders in the background. "Prepare the specimen for termination," he shouted, his voice sharp with fear. The guards raised their weapons, aiming at the human's chest. But Vera moved quickly, stepping between them, her arms outstretched. "Wait," she cried. "You don't understand what he is." The doctor's eyes narrowed, filled with both anger and panic. "What he is a threat," he snapped. But Vera's voice shook with something else. Awe. "No, he is more than that. He is something beyond us." Her tablet beeped sharply, drawing her gaze. She glanced down at the readings and froze. The human cells were glowing in the scan, shifting, multiplying, adapting at impossible speed. She watched in disbelief as broken tissue repaired, faster than her machine could calculate. His blood surged like a storm, feeding his body's strength with every second. The discovery made her chest tighten. "He is not just healing," she whispered, her silver fingers trembling. "He is changing." The guards muttered nervously, stepping back a pace. The doctor scoffed, but his eyes betrayed his unease. "Changing into what?" he demanded. Vera looked back at the human, who met her gaze with burning eyes. Her voice was soft, fearful, yet certain. "Into something stronger." The human's body tensed, his muscles swelling against the restraints. The straps groaned, stretching, one of them snapping with a sharp crack. The guards raised their weapons instantly, panic in their voices. "He's breaking free," one shouted. But Vera lifted her hands again, her voice urgent. "No, don't shoot. Look at him. He is not attacking. He is adapting." The human's breathing deepened, heavy but steady. Every inhalation seemed to feed his body more power. The scanner spiked wildly, numbers rising beyond known limits. Vera's throat went dry as she whispered, This body should not exist." The doctor stepped forward, fury in his eyes. "You are blinded, nurse," he hissed. "You see wonder, but I see a weapon that will kill us all." But before he could give the final order, the station shook violently. The lights flickered, the alarms grew louder. A voice over the intercom screamed, "Shields failing, enemy forces boarding in Sector 12. Every alien froze, their faces pale. The human, however, did not freeze. He lifted his head slowly, his gaze turning toward the ceiling. His lips parted, and a single word left his mouth, raw but clear. "Va!" Vera felt her blood run cold. The timing was too perfect, too terrifying. It was as if the human's body knew the battle had begun, as if war itself was written into his blood. The guards stumbled back, whispering in fear. One muttered, "He feels the fight, he craves it." Another said, "This is unnatural." But Vera only stared, her voice trembling. "No, it is not unnatural, it is human." Her tablet screamed with new data. Radiation from the enemy's weapons leaked into the station. Yet instead of weakening, the human cells grew stronger. She watched in awe as his body absorbed what should have been poison. His wounds closed faster, his pulse steadied, his strength climbed higher. The chief doctor's face turned pale. "This is not medicine," he whispered. "This is madness." But Vera could not look away. Her heart raced as the truth settled over her. The human was not surviving the attack. He was feeding on it. The room shook again, heavier this time. The doors rattled as distant footsteps echoed through the halls. The enemy was here, breaking through layer by layer. The guards looked between the human and the door, torn by fear. Vera made her choice before they could. She moved to the console and began disabling the restraints. The doctor shouted, "What are you doing?" His voice filled with horror. Vera's voice was steady now, sharper than before. "I'm setting free the only chance we have." The last strap snapped free, the sound sharp in the tense air. The human sat up slowly, his gaze sweeping across the room. Every motion was deliberate, powerful, terrifying. Vera stood before him, her body trembling but her voice strong. "Don't make me regret this," she whispered. The human looked at her, his lips curling into the faintest smile. Then he rose to his feet, towering over the aliens. The monitors screamed with readings too high to understand. Vera's tablet fell from her hand, forgotten. Because she no longer needed the data, the truth stood before her, alive, breathing, unstoppable. The human was not only a survivor, not only a fighter, he was evolution itself. And as the doors shook under the weight of the enemy outside, Vera knew the galaxy would never be the same again. The doors of the medical bay shook violently. Each impact rattled the walls, sending cracks of light through the metal. The enemy was here, forcing its way inside. The sound of war filled the air. Alarms, boots, weapons charging, shouts echoing down the corridors. Inside, the human stood tall at last. No longer restrained, no longer weak. His chest rose and fell in calm rhythm. But his eyes burned like fire, sharp, alive, unstoppable. Vera stood before him, her silver fingers trembling at her sides. She could feel the weight of every choice pressing down on her. Behind her, the chief doctor rushed forward, panic in his voice. "Kill him now, before the enemy arrives," he shouted. Guards raised their weapons again, blasters humming with energy. But none of them dared step closer. The human's presence alone was enough to freeze them in place. The air grew heavy, thick with fear. Every alien in the room saw what Vera already knew. The human was not a prisoner anymore. He was a storm waiting to break. The doors shook harder, bending under the force outside. Sparks fell from the ceiling, smoke curling in the air. One more hit, and the enemy would be inside. The commander's voice boomed over the intercom, sharp and final. "All units, prepare for defense. Eliminate the human at once." The words cut through the bay like a blade. Vera's throat tightened, her chest burning. She looked at the guards, their fingers tightening on their triggers. She looked at the doctor, his face pale with fear. And then she looked at the human, standing calm, waiting, not begging, not panicked, just waiting. His gaze locked on hers, fire behind his eyes. And in that silence, Vera understood. He was leaving the choice to her. Not the guards, not the doctor, not the commander. Only her. The doors burst open with a scream of metal. The enemy flooded in. Armored soldiers with glowing weapons, their steps heavy, their voices sharp. The guards turned, aiming their blasters at the intruders, chaos erupting in an instant. But even in that storm, the human did not move until Vera spoke. Her voice broke through the noise, trembling but clear. "Go," she whispered. The human's eyes sharpened, the faintest smile crossing his lips. Then, with a sound like thunder, he moved. The straps had already broken, but now the bed itself tore apart as he lunged forward. His movements were faster than her eyes could follow. He ripped a weapon from a guard's hands before the man even realized. The blast of light tore through the enemy soldier at the door, dropping him instantly. Screams filled the bay, the battle exploding in fire and sound. The aliens fired wildly. The enemy returned fire, sparks raining across the walls. In the center of it all, the human moved like a force of nature. Every strike was precise, every motion unstoppable. Blaster fire struck his skin, burning, tearing, but his body healed even as he fought. He absorbed the pain, fed on it, became stronger with every wound. Vera stood frozen, her silver fingers pressed to her lips. She should have been terrified, but instead she felt awe. The legends had been true, every whisper, every fear. Humans were not just survivors, they were destroyers. And yet, in his eyes, she still saw something more. A will, a choice, a fire not of hate, but of survival. The doctor screamed from behind her. Do you see? He's a monster. But Vera shook her head slowly, her voice breaking. No, he is hope. The human tore through the last of the enemy's soldiers, the bay filled with smoke and silence. His chest heaved with heavy breaths, his body scarred, bleeding, but still unbroken. The guards lowered their weapons, staring at him in fear and disbelief. The doctor backed away, his face pale, his voice a whisper. This cannot be allowed. He will destroy us all. The human turned to Vera then, his eyes locking on hers. For a moment, everything was quiet. He waited, as if asking silently, what now? Her heart's pounded, her throat tight. She had chosen once to free him. Now, she had to choose again. Protect her people by betraying him, or protect him and risk everything. The silence stretched, heavy and endless. Then Vera stepped forward, her silver fingers trembling but steady. She stood at his side, facing the others, her voice clear. He is with me, she said. Her words echoed in the smoky air, louder than any alarm. The guards froze, uncertain. The doctor shook his head in fury. But the human's eyes softened slightly, the fire dimming just enough. For the first time, Vera thought she saw trust in them. The station shook again, the battle outside still raging. But inside the bay, a new battle had already been decided. Vera had made her choice. She had chosen the human, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again.